The biggest clique in the religion game is the Abrahamic faith. Basically, the same cosmic landlord made a private deal with one guy, Abraham. And what was that deal? Circumcision. Because apparently, the all powerful creator of the universe has a weird fascination with foreskin. Nothing says divine covenant like mandatory genital origami. So sorry, I had something playing in my ear there. And what's the payoff? Three major religions that can't agree on who's got the right imaginary peaceful wizard, but can agree that non-believers should be violently exterminated. And just for fun, their end times prophecies are all mutually exclusive, which means they're basically a ticking time bomb of holy wars. Fantastic. But wait, there's more. These folks believe a loving God once drowned everyone, including babies, because they were evil babies. And if that wasn't enough, somehow women are to blame for everything bad that's ever happened because they liked fruit salad. It's almost impressive how much nonsense they've crammed into one book. And if you start questioning any of it, they would need to begin cherry picking their faith. These people aren't exactly known for nuanced thinking. Some even go prehistoric and claim the earth is flat and the sun and stars are just little twinkly decorations. If you don't think this is absurd, call us because the show's about to start right now. What's up, heathens? Today is February 9th, 2025. I am the Godless Engineer, and joining me today is Jmike. Hey there, Jmike. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've had some awesome conversations with some awesome people recently, so I'm hoping we have some more.
Yeah, I've been pretty active like on Facebook and everything like that. So I've been having some lively conversations myself. But I'm so stoked to be here today, taking calls from everybody in the crowd. I do want to start off by saying, though, that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. So first off, we want to get to the question of the week. Let's see. Last week, we asked you guys name an unexpected Christian value. And so we want to go through our three favorite ones right here at the beginning. So number 3, we've got Q100101. Name an unexpected Christian value. Owning an expensive and pristine copy of the Bible with no wear and tear on the cover, spine, or any of the pages. That sounds like some Hobby Lobby stuff right there. Like, I feel like you definitely paid way too much to get that, and it was just printed in about 1984. Next up, we've got Godwin_7. Who says, an unexpected Christian value, let he who is with sin not throw the first stone. That one tripped me up because I know what it actually is. And so it kind of threw me for a loop there.
Yeah.
And then finally, we've got Captain Zap Brannigan, who says, an unexpected extra value, anti-abortion. Bible says nothing about banning this healthcare procedure. So
I like the Zap reference.
Yes, I do too. I love that. So the prompt this week that we are running with is complete the question. If God is so smart, why hasn't it what? So I've got my own ideas about this, but Jmike, what do you think about this?
Well, I had one I was gonna joke, but I think like only a couple people would know. I was gonna say why if God was so smart, why hasn't it revealed his name is Greg? But my actual serious one that probably everybody can be involved in is, if God is so smart, why hasn't it updated the Bible with patch notes?
Yeah, I think patch notes would be great for it. Just like, we need to change this. Don't own people as property. Like that's that's a kind of a dick thing to do. I think gets patch notes. How come we can't get patch notes for the Bible? I mean, come on.
A game
I
from
agree.
2004 is still getting patch notes and nothing with the Bible.
Yeah. But I am anxious to see what everybody comes up with in the audience. In the comment section below, please give us your best answer and tune in next week to reveal our top 3. And make sure you put the answers in the comments to this live stream below and not in the live chat. So, all right. Now with all of that kind of gone through, Jmike, are you ready to take our first call here?
I am. I'm also ready for my hat to stop looking like a beret and look coming off to the side there. We'll make it work. I have a struggle with beanies. They just slide off my head, but whatever.
No, yeah, I totally understand that. All right. So first up, I think that we're going to be going to Tommi. Let's see. Tommi. Hey there, Tommi. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing well, I think. Thank you for asking.
Good. So, what do you want to talk about today there, Tommi?
Well, I was recommended to talk about the problem of evil, but if you are not interested, we can do something else.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I was just, I kind of like for you to lead off with, what you want to talk about, maybe make your argument or something like that. Just, just trying to interact with you. So if you want to talk about the problem of evil, let's do it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I do consider it to be the greatest challenge, personally, to the traditional Christian faith. But I do believe a traditional Christian view can be fully coherent in that sense. I do not think it disproves it. But there are different formulations. If you are interested in challenging from a specific angle the problem of evil, I would love to respond.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of you could kind of go with the older J.L. Mackie kind of version. I'm sure you're familiar or whatever, but I like to talk about this stuff. If somebody came back to me and they were like, I really want you to structure this out and, like a syllogism or something, I'd be happy to do that. But given that, we have an audience and I think we can probably talk about this with natural language pretty well. I kind of run it different ways because I anticipate different responses depending on what your view is. So I guess I would ask you, do you think that God is infallible with regards to his desires? If he desires, the dankest ice cream of all time, then necessarily he's going to get that ice cream.
I believe ultimately, yes. Ultimately, nothing can triumph God's will, in eternity. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that happen against God's will temporarily.
Sure. Do you think that God desires that there be evil in the world?
No. It would be against his nature.
But presumably he wants people to have freedom, right? To be able to make that choice, like a moral significant freedom between good and evil, right? That's going to be something that you want to make sure you have, right? Sorry?
Yes, he allows the possibility of evil because of the freedom.
Great. Do you think it's possible for an agent to always choose the good, right? They could face themselves with evil, but upon, being faced with a good choice or a bad choice, they end up making the good choice. And then the next event they do that. So then, for all events, they end up doing the good choice. Do you think that that's possible?
I don't think it's impossible. In theory, it's possible.
Yeah. So if it's the case that God desires that there not be any evil, he's a being, presumably you think he's omnipotent, so he can instantiate any possible world, right?
Yeah, as long as it's not contradictory.
Yeah, and we've established that agents freely choosing the good always, even when faced with evil, doesn't host a contradiction. So now it seems kind of weird. We have certain propositions and we could formalize this in a way. We could do this in an infinite amount of ways, but it seems odd because you have a being that is infallible, can't fail with respect to its desires that there be no evil, but desires also that, humans ultimately make that choice, right, between good or evil. But then you have a being that can instantiate any possible world. So it seems that it seems like God just failed then from your view, because if God can instantiate any logically possible world, and by your own admission, a world where agents freely do the good always is a logically possible world, then the conclusion of that argument is just going to follow that God can instantiate a world where agents always freely choose the good and no evil, right? So it just seems like that's going to be a problem. Do you track what I'm saying so far?
I understand, but that's the nature of freedom. If God forced us to always have chosen good from the beginning, then we would just
no. So you're introducing new language. Hold on, I have to cut you off. You're introducing new language. Notice that in if you go back and listen to the recording, I never once said force. I was actually very clear to make sure that it's morally significant freedom.
Yes, but
so there's no force here.
Then there would be a contradiction, because you're saying there is no force, but we couldn't have chosen evil.
Look, but okay, I'm going to pass this to John because I want to hog the whole time, but I want to ask you this before I pass this off. Like, presumably you're a sinner, right?
Yes.
As a Christian, you're a sinner. Okay. The last time that you sinned, you could have probably done the good, right? And rather than sin, free?
Yeah, it was possible.
How about the time before that?
Every time it was in theory.
Every time, yeah, exactly. We can skip we can pass it to John quicker by not going through each one. So for each one of those, and presumably for all of those, I mean, we got to be careful not to have some quantifier shift from like each to all. But if it is the case that for all of the sins that you've ever committed in your life, you could have done the good, and that's possible, it's not clear to me that there is a contradiction, because you'd have to show some like logical derivation that like that's incompatible. But it seems like you concede that. And also, like, presumably you think God is a being that always does the good. And there's only two options there. Either he can't do evil and always does the good, or he can do evil but always ends up doing the good. So this view can't be contradictory, because then it would just show the properties that God inhibits to be contradictory and on a different level, right? So I'm not seeing what the contradiction is, one, and two, how this wouldn't just affect your view on another level where God is a being that can freely do the good always, right? There's no contradiction there. Why would it be the case for humans?
Yeah, so I would think there is a contradiction with the idea that God gives us the freedom to choose what to do, but makes it impossible for us to do otherwise. If it makes it impossible for us to do otherwise, then we are not free. It must be possible.
No, you are free. Upon that deliberation, no one's pulling your strings. You choose to do the good, right? God just instantiates the world where all the age, like he has a file cabinet, knows from the first, like, let's just imagine John's the only one that does a good thing and everybody else does horrible things, right? There's the first file after everybody does evil all the time. We have one person in one instance doing the good. And then the next file is John doing like 2 instances of good and everybody else doing evil. We do all these permutations until we get to the back end of the file. And the back end of that file is everybody freely chooses the good. We can't special plead and say that God pulling out one of those files determines my actions. If you already think God knowing what I'm going to do ahead of time doesn't determine what I do, then what's the difference between any one of those files he pulls out? Whether it be the one where we always choose evil, whether it be the one where some of us choose evil, like the world we're in now, and some choose good, or whether it be the one where everybody chooses good. We don't want a special plead, because for any one of those files God picks from, because he knows the contents of those files, you're either going to have to agree that God, knowing that ahead of time, determines what I do, right? Or you're going to have to say, no, that's not a problem. Divine foreknowledge and what God ends up doing is not a problem. But then in that case, you'll concede my point, which is that God could select any one of those permutations of freedom, any one of them, from John just doing one thing good to the end of everybody always doing good. And he wouldn't determine that action. He would just instantiate it by your own view.
Yeah, I do not believe that foreknowledge in God's case is deterministic.
Okay, great. So then you concede to me that divine foreknowledge doesn't determine humans' actions. Now, me and John probably definitely disagree with that. God knowing this ahead of time seems to directly have this tension between it. But let's grant you that. if you do that, you're giving me more ammo to play with, because now that since God's divine foreknowledge doesn't get in the way of our freedom, God's selecting the file where we always end up choosing the good is just him looking at the world where we always choose good and instantiating that world. He's not by your own lights. He's not determining it. So you're just conceding that he failed. He picked the worst file out of millions of different permutations.
He's not.
Sorry, John. I want to hog all this.
We're the ones making the choices.
Well, so if I can, typically I take hold on. Typically, I take the problem of evil in a different way, because I think that, you know, what Jmike is saying here is incredibly valid. Obviously, I usually like to think of it in terms of like unnecessary suffering or needless suffering. So these would be instances where we haven't necessarily made a choice for anything to cause like suffering and everything. So like thinking about bone cancer in kids, or like, you know, anything of that sort. Those pesky little parasites that'll burrow into your eyes and like eat your face or something like that,
like Loa worms or something like that.
Yeah. So like these are things that aren't necessarily stuff that we have chosen. It's just the way that nature operates, because nature is amoral. Nature does not care whether or not a living entity is suffering. So I guess the question as far as the problem of evil goes is, you know, why does God allow that? If God is all good, then it kind of seems to me like God would create a world, or at least have a world, that doesn't necessarily include, you know, that kind of suffering. You could dance around all day with the kind of suffering that humans choose, you know, kind of thing. But I feel like this one is a little bit harder to actually get around. So like, what's your answer for like nature causing like all this kind of suffering and all that kind of stuff?
That's a great question. Yes, it's important to make the distinction. The response would be the idea of the fall. This is not the world that God created.
So magic.
Broken by.
So magic. Let me get this straight. Your explanation is because a woman ate a fruit salad.
McRib woman.
A McRib woman ate a fruit salad. It magically cursed us. Hold on. It magically cursed us for all time, and therefore puts all human suffering on the shoulders of women. That's your answer?
No, I don't take the story of Adam and Eve literally.
Okay, well, you can't.
An allegory to explain the
the fall isn't literal.
It's an allegory. Okay, you want to take it as an allegory. Perfectly fine. What the fuck is the allegory? How does this relate to like reality? I mean, if you don't think that a woman named Eve ate from a tree that she wasn't supposed to, and that cursed humankind, what the fuck actually happened? Like in reality, not just allegory, like what happened in reality? That's what we want to know.
Any act of rebellion, we do any because we were made free with the possibility of going against.
We're taking that as a literal thing.
When
you say rebellion,
the first moment, yes, there was one. It's just those particulars are not literal. But there was,
and how is this not magical though? Like that, this is what I'm getting to. Like, how is this not magical? Because I keep getting back to this is like some magical stuff here, primarily because of the fact that when you consider what's being proposed here, you're saying that God got pissed off at somebody rebelling against him, which essentially is just disobeying what he's telling them to do. And so then he casts a magical incantation on all of humankind for all of history that then curses us to suffer at the hands of nature. Like that's what you're telling me right now.
Do you think that's justice?
No, it was not God. God did not break the world. It is defect. It's creation going against God's will breaks creation.
Is God a perfect creator?
Creation.
Is God a perfect creator? Like, is he like a perfect, like the best engineer in the world? Is he a very bigly good engineer?
I mean, not an engineer, but he's perfect.
Ooh.
He is perfect. So why did he create a universe or a world or whatever that can be broken? As an engineer myself, one of my tasks is to like do risk assessments and try to dummy proof my system to where it can't easily be broken. So like just a simple rebellion, like one time where a person looked up to the sky and flipped God off, apparently that was enough to break the entire universe. Is that what you're telling me?
That is what when we talk about the world being fallen or broken, that's the term that Christians use for the creature rebelling against Creator. That's what it means. So it makes it impossible for it to break.
But what does it mean to rebel? And in your eyes, when you say rebellion, what does that mean?
Yes, maybe it's a strong word. I only use it because it's a traditional world. It means going against God's will.
Right, exactly. So getting back to my original point, Jmike, fact check me on, or well, not fact check me, but check me on this. Is this not exactly what I said? Somebody pissed God off because they didn't follow what he said, and so therefore God magically broke the world, broke humanity. Like there was something about it.
If you changed out what you said with what he added, John, the statement would remain true. It's not like he swapped out terms and replaced them and then made what you said false, right? It's the same thing, just with different words. It's really
exactly.
So, but like I'm a little weirded out because you're saying he's perfect, and then like John brings up this point that I really would like to ask you about. Do you think that like it's justice if I committed some horrible, like let's say I went and I burned down an elementary school or something terrible, right? And they put me on trial, and John comes up and goes, "Hey, I will take Mike's sentence for him." Right? I just put it all on me. Do you think that any justice occurred when I get off now and now John takes my sentence for me? Do you think that that's, I'm just trying to get, right now I'm just trying to gauge your sense of justice.
No.
Sorry, what was the answer?
Not fair. And I disagree with the view of Christ as penal substitution.
Well, I'm not even getting there yet. The point is that.
Sorry, I was assuming.
No, yeah. I'm just saying that like I'm just gauging what your kind of analysis of justice is and what's constitutive of things that are justice or things that are injustice. So presumably the thing that just occurred that I told you is it would be some type of injustice, right?
Yes, of course.
I should take Okay. How is that ostensibly different than me being born in, the 90s and having me put, basically I'm kind of, without even wanting to, I am now like, okay, I will take the punishment and the crime from something a McRib woman did, thousands and thousands of years ago. How is that ostensibly different? How is that a perfect being? And if a perfect being supplies justice, it seems incompatible. It seems like we have a new contradiction that a perfect being, right, couldn't have like these types of injustices, at least by your own lights. But that seems by your own lights to be an injustice, that if I am taking on a sentence that I never committed.
He must allow the possibility of injustice because it's entailed in freedom.
Well, that doesn't, okay, so do you think you think God is perfectly just, right?
Yes.
Okay, great, but he doesn't do any injustices, right?
Right.
Okay, so what you just said was false then. It's not true. Look, you think God is free, right? He's not forced, he's free.
He is absolutely free, which is why he can only...
Okay, so fundamentally, we're not even talking about getting to humans yet. The like fundamental fabric of, the reality that you think is true, this God thing, right? You have him being free, right? Him being perfect and never having injustices. You told me that you couldn't have the freedom unless there were the injustices, but that's fundamentally and foundationally not true on your view, because the thing that's foundational in your view has no injustices, is perfect, and has freedom, and never does evil, by the way, which is me trying to get back to that other point in a vague sense that by your own lights, you don't need the ability to do evil or to do injustices to have freedom, because your view foundationally starts with something being perfect but having freedom, right? So you just introduce randomly down the line of creation that there has to be this thing for freedom. But foundationally, that's not the case, right? Do you see my point?
I understand. So I need to say two things. Firstly, I didn't say that it was necessary for evil to exist. I said it was necessary for the possibility of evil to exist.
Yeah, but okay, let me stop. I know you want to go on, but was that inconsistent with what I told you from the outset, which was that agents will have the choice to choose evil or good, but they always end up choosing the good? That was consistent with what I said. I constructed that world in such a way that it was consistent.
Depends on God. That depends on our choice, not God's choice.
No, yes, it does depend on our choices, and God has the foreknowledge of all of the choices we could ever make. All he has to do is pick the file where everybody makes the right choice, right? You can't say that there's no freedom there.
He didn't pick.
So you think that you think before he creates, you're not an open theist. You're not an open theist. An open theist is somebody that thinks that the knowledge isn't knowable. So God is omniscient, but since the future isn't knowable, he can't know things in the future. You've never said that. You're not an open theist. You've admitted to me that God has divine foreknowledge about everything we'll do in all possible worlds, right? Why doesn't it? So him creating is selecting one of those possible worlds. I can't get past this with you. I'm gonna get stuck here with you if you can't hold on. I want you to recognize this point. He knows all of creaturely freedom actions in all possible worlds. Yes or no?
Yes, but not before us.
Great. So when he decides to create this world, he knew the actions the agents would freely take, right? He already knew that, right?
Not in the past.
Stop.
You're
saying, so are you an open theist now? God doesn't know the future. So you're contradicting yourself. Either he knows all the actions that we do in the future in all possible worlds, or he doesn't. So you're just contradicting yourself. Are you?
Can I clarify?
Are you? Sorry.
Can I clarify?
Yes. Well, it's either one or the other. This is either God knows the future or he doesn't know the future of creaturely actions. That's a dichotomy.
So he knows everything, but you're situating him in time, saying that he knows things before they happen.
No, I'm asking if he knows what agents will do in all possible worlds. I didn't say anything about time. That might have time related, but I'm just asking you if he knows those propositions to be true. It shouldn't be hard. We shouldn't have to waste this much time on this.
I already said yes multiple times.
Okay, great. So then don't say something that sounds like you're going against that again, and I won't have to do this. Right? Don't gaslight me now, right? So when you have a view and you already think that God knows the future, he knows everything that everybody will do. Just imagine this world right now. He knows what I'm going to do at 8 p.m. I'm going to eat a ham sandwich. He knows that ahead of time, and he creates that world. What is ostensibly how is this not ostensibly the same thing as when he chooses the world where agents freely choose to do good? Notice what I said there. The world that freely chooses to do good. That should be no different than when he chooses this world, knowing that I'll do some good actions or some bad actions, right? We can't special plead and say that the one with all the good is somehow different than all the ones with the mixtures of them. That makes no sense, right? If he knows that ahead of time, he's going to know what will happen in the future, right?
He's not choosing, he's knowing. You're using the word choice, so I have to disagree.
Okay, so God doesn't choose to create then?
Not choosing the future.
So God, sans creation, God doesn't choose to create at some point, or some.
Doesn't choose our choices for us.
So God doesn't freely choose to create. I'm pretty sure as a theological doctrine that you probably hold to is that creation's a free gift.
Wait, hold on. Wouldn't that make your God limited?
Make him not free either.
No,
I mean, I'm assuming you believe in the tri-omni God, right? I mean, you believe in the tri-omni God, right?
Yes.
Okay, then it kind of seems like the God that you're advocating for is limited in his power if he can't, either choose a path or, control reality in a way where he gets the desired decision. Just in any of those things, it kind of feels like he's very limited in his power. Then, huh?
I never said he couldn't. I said he doesn't, because that takes away our freedom.
How do you know he doesn't? How do you know he doesn't? How do you know that you're actually making your own decisions right now? What's to prevent God from sticking his fingers in your head, kind of like that woman from Deadpool and Wolverine, sticking it in your head and making you do things? Like, how do you know? And for that matter, how do you know that that's God and not Satan?
Yeah, it's just you're going into skeptical theism if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, so we're talking about free will versus determinism.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying that you're making a lot of statements here that you can't actually back up with evidence, and it only causes more questions than it really gives answers. So,
I mean, I don't think there is a compelling argument for determinism being true, and in the absence of determinism, I have no reason to deny the freedom that at least seems to exist.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand how that can operate, and maybe Jmike can explain it to me. Like under your whole worldview, because like if God knows the future and knows everything that is going to happen, then that kind of makes it deterministic in and of itself, doesn't it?
No, that's what I've been saying from the start. God's foreknowledge is not deterministic.
Yeah, but then okay, so I heard you on Talk Heathen, and we really have other callers, so I want you to call back because you have. I see several issues in your view because I listened back to part of your call on Talk Heathen, and you were talking about contingency and all that. And the problem that you're going to face though is how you actually carve out the modal space, how you actually get contingent facts. I don't think you can do this unless you invoke indeterminacy. So those possible worlds that you think are free to God, in my view, is going to require you embracing indeterminism, which means that God can't intend for some world and guarantee that world come about, right? That's going to be intentional collapse, and God can't be like omniscient and guarantee this world that he desires to create. So I want you to call back about the contingency stuff, because when you bring up this God isn't determined, there's these possible worlds, I think you're going to run into a different issue there, which is how do you carve out the modal space without invoking indeterminacy? And you said just a second ago you don't see any good argument for like determinism or anything like that. But one of the big problems you're going to face is that you need contrastive explanations across worlds. I don't know if you're familiar with this kind of like philosophical analysis, but you need things like contrastive explanations, because like if I have a world where I'm creating just like red Play-Doh, and then say like we imagine there's a world where blue could somehow be instantiated with all of the same red dye and all of that stuff, the only way you're going to get that possible world is if you're like, okay, well, randomly the output could just be blue because of some like quantum fluctuation or some chancy event. But otherwise, the antecedents are going to determine that outcome every single time, because you can't just change the outcome and then just go, yeah, I don't have a contrastive explanation for why that obtains, right? That's just giving no explanation. That'd be like me giving a theory of evolution going, oh, why does this phenotypic trait rise to fixation in the population over to, I don't actually need to give you an explanation for why that phenotypic trait rather than another phenotypic trait. That's not my problem, right? So I worry about your entire view on this, because you're going back into the contingency stuff, or you're going into like it's not determined by God, but either you're going to get intentional collapse or you're going to get God having to be forced to create the world that he creates. I don't think we can get into all the philosophical mumbo jumbo on that right now, but.
Well, I would add that you just described a lot of things about my supposed beliefs and made accusations. I would like to be able to respond.
Well, I didn't make an accusation. Right. I just said I think it's going to be very hard for you to carve out the modal space. This is an accusation I'd make against any theist that doesn't like understand. I have a different modal. So my view is an Aristotelian branching modality. I think you can only get contingent facts with if there's like a real true interpretation of quantum mechanics that's indeterministic. That's the only way you get contingent facts.
Right. So Tommy, I'm going to let you have the last word here, but we do need to move on to other callers. Okay. Tommy, did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you have the last word, but we do have other callers to move on to, so we're gonna move on. But I'm going to let you have the last word. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the lovely conversation. I do believe I can respond to the things you're pointing out. If we don't have time right now, I would love to talk at another time if it's possible, but I will just say that you are assuming a mechanistic view of how the world works, which leads you to those problems. I do not have a mechanistic view of the world where the world is a sequence of mechanical causes and effects, so I don't think your logic will follow. But we
That's
can
well, and
elaborate later.
that's fine. When you call back, we'll talk about the. When you call back, we'll talk about the brute contingencies involved with libertarian free will, and I'll elucidate that point for you and why all you're saying when you invoke libertarian free will is a brute contingent fact. And anyway, that's fine.
Yep. Thank you so much, Tommi, for calling in. Appreciate you there, bud. But we are going to drop you real quick so that we can get to other callers. But we do have a couple of announcements to get through first. All right, we are going to be getting back to calls here in just a minute. But first, we have some exciting news. Sophia?
Calling all free thinkers. We are excited to announce that the ACA is launching its first ever fundraising campaign, Amplify ACA, in partnership with Amplify Austin. This is your chance to expand our impact by making your voices heard and supporting the shows that you love.
We invite you to join us on March 5th starting at 6 p.m. We're going to be doing a 24-hour fundraising event and camp out live at the Free Thought Library in Austin, Texas. We've got a great show in the works, a whole variety hour with our hosts doing different things, not just taking calls like you're used to, but we're going to have the fun facts and playing some games and lots of different activities. So be sure to join us from that. Again, it's going to be really exciting, and we're looking forward to having as many people involved as we possibly can.
Donating is easy on amplifyatx.org. Just search the word atheist and click the donate button. Follow us on our socials for more information.
And this is important. We want to be able to amplify the voices of reason and compassion worldwide. So we ask you, please, donate on Amplify Austin Day to make a real difference.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben, Sophia, and Jamie. And yes,
Those are my dogs.
Yeah. This is our first ever major fundraising campaign, and we need your help to make it a success. Please mark your calendars for March 5th at 6 p.m. for our fundraising kickoff party and 24-hour live stream. Come on down to the Free Thought Library if you're in Austin, or join us online via the Atheist Experience channel. Make a plan to donate, and let's amplify the ACA together. Another way that you can support us here at the ACA is by sending in super chats. If we get 10 super chats for $10, which we're only 3 super chats away, we will replace me, Godless Engineer, with a much more handsome and better looking and better spoken Brocephus for the entire next call. So I hope that a few more people will do some more super chats there, so that Brocephus can come on and share the good news of whatever he's talking about today. All right, let's see. Are you ready to get to another call there, Jmike?
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I was thinking of like how I can steal your gimmick and have like Apollonius of Brohana or something. I don't know.
Apollonius of Brohana. That sounds good. All right, we're gonna go to GB from California. How's it going there, GB?
Hey guys, I really appreciate you taking my call. Also, shout out to Tommi. I think he did a fine job. You guys did a good job too. I wanted to specifically ask.
Yeah, I like Tommi. I'm sorry. Apologies to Tommi if I came off anyway.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to specifically ask you how you feel about the White House faith office, being implemented, and if you see this as a positive or a negative. And I understand if you guys can't or won't talk about this, But I did want to hear your opinion on what effect that might have on America and our culture.
Yeah, I think Godless would probably have a lot of insight with what you've told me before the show and what you've been doing. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
So really towing the line here of what we're able to talk about. I very much am in support of the First Amendment to the Constitution. That's the separation of church and state. I feel like having a faith office of faith, specifically located in the White House, so that faith leaders from across the United States can have direct influence on our policies and direct influence on our government, I think is a direct violation of the First Amendment. I think that we need to have a clear separation of church and state because once you allow one particular denomination to start making decisions for everybody else, giving privileged access to only specifically one religion, and dare I say one particular denomination of the religion, I think that it can only end up being bad and something akin to the Republic of Gilead and Handmaid's Tale, where you have like councils that are making decisions based on what the Bible says and what's said in the book. I also think that it's rather rich who they have leading this White House faith office, primarily because not only is the person a televangelist that has in the past claimed that you need to send in several thousands of dollars in order to have God bless your life and all this other stuff, as well as some dubious marriage history. I don't think that they necessarily represent the full swath of what we should expect out of such an office. And so I think that this is only a bad thing. I think that it's going to result in policies being made in light of the Bible and policies being focused on what they want to focus on, using the Bible as a shield. And so I think that it's all around a bad idea.
Ditto. I am not following that, by the way. Godless, I'll just say 100% agreed. I could never word it as well as you did.
Yeah, I really, I'm not good. I'm not very good with the words. I'm an engineer, not an English major.
Well, you were bad. I can't find my words with it. I would steal exactly what you said, 100%.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think there, GB?
Well, yeah, I'm not surprised, right? And I'm just glad to hear your honest thoughts on it. I didn't know that as a nonprofit, you guys are actually very limited as far as what you can say politically. So I do appreciate you guys taking the call at all. But that is the most pressing thing that I saw.
Well, so despite a number of church organizations and churches out there, we take our 501c3 status seriously, to where we do not electioneer, and so we try to adhere to the limitations that we operate within.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
I like what I do, and I'm going to be as careful as possible. And now with with things going on, the future of what I do seems to be more in jeopardy than I could ever think it could even be. So I'm kind of fearful of the outlets that we have and almost picking them off as time goes. I'm really worried about that, but that's a whole separate thing to talk about, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what do you think about it, GB? I mean, I know you called in to get our opinions, but I'm kind of curious, how do you feel?
Yeah, because it says you're a theist, right?
Yes, I am.
Sweet. So yeah, you're like, just so the audience knows, GB's a theist. So this would be a good, I guess, a different perspective from a theist on this matter. So
I know, right? Obviously I'm in favor of it, right? No surprise there. I think it's very interesting that. What was that?
Well, hold on, GB. I get that you're in favor of it, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we all, I feel like we can be assured that what's being set up is a very Christian faith office. This is not going to be like inclusive of other faiths that are out there, or even non-faiths. So, right. So how would you feel if somebody set up a White House faith office that was primarily only hosting figures from the Muslim community? Like, what if they were making decisions based on the Muslim faith?
Thank you for asking. That's a very good question. I would say that when I wasn't evangelical, I probably would have seen it more negative, right? But I'm no longer that. I now would see it as a positive thing. I do think having protection for any religion, right, even if it's not one that I disagree with, is more positive than negative. But I can see how it could be used negatively. That would be my first take. Just I would be in favor.
Okay.
if it was-
So GB, I don't mean to get combative with this, but how would you feel if I, had if I, as a figure in the atheist community, forced through policy that you cannot attend church?
Oh, that's a really good question. If okay, you could order that executive order, right? It would then depend on on our court to uphold it, which I just don't see that happening. So I guess
none of us saw a lot of the things happening now to be happening. So we can't use that.
Also, I want to point out there, GB, that currently the transportation secretary is dictating which cities and which areas of the country are getting more support from the federal government, depending on whether or not they have high marriage rates as well as high birth rates. And this seems to be geared towards this whole Christian understanding of the importance of the family, and essentially through the government, creating this this system where very Christian areas and areas that adhere to their Christian values are given preferential treatment. So let me give you another scenario. What if I, as an atheist, influence the government so that whatever area you're in, super religious area you're in, was well underfunded, primarily because you are a religious area, and I find that religion is a detriment to humanity, and so I want to crush those areas and make sure that they do not have the funding that they require?
Well, I would be offended, right? But technically speaking, I would probably understand. You being an atheist, you probably would have won your election because you ran off specifically like a separation of church and state or something like that, So if then you started enacting on that kind of rhetoric, then yeah, I would understand. I would obviously vote differently, right? But I can see how.
So do you know what the First Amendment to the Constitution means? Like, do you know what it says?
Can you tell me?
Okay, well, I mean, I don't have it memorized. It's been like 30 years since I've been in school, but I can definitely bring it up real quick, so I can read the literal words in the Constitution. The Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. So essentially, I feel like you just simply don't understand how our government is set up, what our Bill of Rights protects, because the scenario I set up is just as illegal as what the transportation secretary is doing right now, in that he's wanting to send more funding to more religious areas that are focused on family values and all this other stuff, as opposed to equally doling out federal funding to all areas. So I feel like maybe you need to read up on what your constitutional rights are, because it just seems like you're a little bit personally incredulous about what your rights actually are in this. And just because you might be personally okay with it doesn't mean that it's okay for me to do that to your area or to do that through the government.
Do you want me to respond, or is that just the closing?
I mean, it doesn't have to be the closing. You can interact with me, but I'm just saying that, like, don't be okay with oppression in that kind of sense when you're perfectly when you're well within your rights, like to not suffer that kind of thing. I'm just advocating for you to understand, like, your rights here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I did find that a little condescending, to be honest, but I will engage if that's okay with you, because as far as I can tell, I could still have an atheist president that was bent on underfunding religious organizations or anything like that, but while I can still maintain my religious liberties, I don't see those things as being mutually exclusive.
What's not mutually exclusive?
Well, if I had an atheist president that was bent on, I don't know what you want to say, like under investing. You know, his whole mission, right, was that, hey, you know, America, I want to really separate church and state, and I mean really separate it. I want to make sure that church's influences, like in everything, is very minimal. And you did it, right? I could be offended.
Well, what do you mean? Okay, so you're saying in this hypothetical we did it. Just letting you know, like America was set up to have that kind of separation of church and state. But go on ahead.
Well, good. Then that's what I'm trying to say, is that you can have this hypothetical president who's atheist and who's bent on, you know, doing that, and I can still be a free with my religious liberties. You know, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. That's what I was trying to say.
It sounds like this really dishonest for you to have the perspective of just like all that matters there is you having the private mental belief about it, right? Like no one's going to be able to infiltrate your mind and your values there, right? So it almost seems like disrespectful to John's point here, right? Like you just being able to have those freedoms. I don't think you're even being honest with yourself. I think if this happened to you in the same exact way, you wouldn't sit there and go, at least I still believe in Christ. You would feel like there's injustice upon you. Right.
And just so that you know, the passing appropriation bills that are passed in Congress, those are laws. And so like you cannot pass a law that disproportionately affects religious communities, just like you should not be able to pass any kind of laws or do anything through the government that disproportionately favors religious communities. Those are just things that are, you know, illegal. They should be illegal at least, but you know, there's a lot of illegal stuff going on right now. Mm-hmm. I do feel like you're missing my entire point here, because my entire point is arguing that these are things that should not happen. And so that for the equity of all Americans, you should be afforded, you know, the same rights as everybody else. And in that vein, I think that it's completely irresponsible to set up an office of faith in the White House, because that is going to influence the government based on the Bible. And I don't know if you know this there, GB, but the Bible, it has God mandating the taking of little girls for child sex slavery. It also sets up a system where women are treated as property, much similar to The Handmaid's Tale. Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale there, GB?
Guys, I just want to, I don't want to.
Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale? Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale?
Well, if I answer your question, can I respond back to, well, because you guys called me disingenuous, I think there was just something that may have been misplaced. But yeah, if I answer your question, can I respond?
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that you are necessarily. I'm just saying your responses are.
Okay. Well, I have not seen The Handmaid's Tale, but my response to you know, being disingenuous is mainly just this, right? I lived through the pandemic, and I lived through an America that told me I could not gather for worship, and it was not violating my rights. What I'm trying to—
Oh my God! Dude, it was to protect people. For fuck's sake, GB.
Are you fucking serious? Did you want to go around like so? Let me tell you. So this is what you wanted to do. You wanted to be able to gather and infect my grandmother and allow her to die. That's what you preferred that.
Well,
are you just like a Are you like a denier that anything actually happened?
Well, but this is an emotional argument, guys. This is
it's not emotional. This no. This takes like an immense amount of like biochem to understand what's going on, right? So you're just fucking wrong. And by the way, you don't have any knowledge. I guarantee you have as much knowledge in biochem as a shoe, right? So for you to have the audacity to be like, oh, they did this thing, and like you couldn't even like scratch the surface of how to attack what's going on there. Like this is like a thing, like when you talk with like anti-vaxxers and stuff like that, it's like you have to at least know a little bit of biochem if you want to like correct them on bullshit they say, or they have to at least know a little bit in order for them to make a solid point, which none of them ever do, right? It's the same thing. You're just like mad you had to gather, but you don't know you don't know dick about biochem or biology or any of this, and then you're worried about being able to worship when Jesus in your own text tells you to not go in public, go away, do that in the privacy of your own home. right? So it just seems so odd to me that he would even say something like that. I'm actually genuinely offended by that. Because some of us lost people that we know, right? During that pandemic. So it's just extremely offensive for you to say.
Hey, I'm sorry. Okay, that was not my intention. Hey, and by the way, I agree. There's a time and place to do it, right? That wasn't it. But
look, it just shows it shows where your mind's at. If you were worried about you worshiping, which you can fucking do anywhere at any time, and no one's preventing you from doing that.
I'm not worried about it.
And your concern was like, oh, I can't go gather at church. Well, dude, that you guys gathering at church affects my fucking grandma, right? Because not all my relatives are fucking, atheists. They might be convinced by fellow Christians. It's okay. We'll just go to church together, right? It's just I'm like lost for words on that, man.
I thought that was the right. No. I thought that was the right thing to do. It isn't a very loving thing. The Pope himself said it's more loving, right, to not to take the vaccine. And, so I don't think we're in a disagreement there, and I am sorry. I just think we got off on the wrong foot.
No. It seemed like you started off by saying that your religious liberties were taken away during COVID because you couldn't go to church to worship.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, look, that's not a removal of my liberty, and yet I couldn't gather, right? What I'm trying to say is that, look, the government told me, hey, this is why you can't gather in a place of worship. And I can rightfully say, hey, yeah, I agree. You're not taking away my religious liberty just because you're saying I can't gather in my normal place of worship. That's what I was trying to say.
Matthew 6:6, but when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
I think we got on the wrong foot. And
that's fine. It's just the way when you word things, you kind of come off. I'll leave that to an audience. That's fine. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you not doubling down and being like, "Hey, I think we got off the wrong foot." That's fine. It shows like some intent there to have a back and forth that's not going to be toxic and hostile. But when I reach like a certain line on things, I'm very pro science, and I don't tolerate like science denial. So when I detect that, or I detect this kind of religious value over kind of what the scientific community is saying about our health, I just get a little weirded out by that. That's all.
I totally don't blame you. Thank you for thank you for letting us have this conversation about that. But yeah, I
appreciate you being respectful.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so maybe with that said, right, I just want to say that, hey, I can totally imagine in America where maybe not as friendly towards religion, right? Or there's like much less influence on it, but it doesn't mean that I have like a right to complain, right? And I don't know, maybe that's where we should end it. But if you guys have any other thoughts on it, thank you. This did not go the way that
I want John to like just restate what he said to you so that it like kind of clicks in there if John's willing to do that. Cause like, I just don't, I think that point's like super important on, because like I think like me and John would fight on the front lines with you just to have your religious freedoms, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the faith office here is only geared towards violating the religious freedoms of all Americans, not just like non-religious people, but also religious people of different persuasions, even different denominations. And I guess I'm just wanting you to understand what your rights are, to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes, and instead of being a yes man, I want you to carefully consider what rights you are constitutionally afforded. And I don't want you to just sort of take your licks and keep on going. You need to understand what you should expect out of your government, and that you should want to fight for the freedoms of other people as well. Yeah, you should want other people to be afforded the same kind of freedoms that you're afforded.
Exactly.
And it amazes me how easily you're just like, well, if that's what the atheist president is going to want to do, then I guess at least I can still worship Jesus. Like, that's not the attitude to have about it. You are constitutionally afforded freedoms, and you should expect those out of your government.
Well, that was a much more pro-religious like encouragement. So thank you. I do appreciate that.
Well, maybe in the future we can like start out by pointing out to people that like, look, I think the propositions you believe are false, and some of them I think are like just terrible. Like our morality is not like anywhere close to that. We're running, as far as fuck away from that as we can. And, I can point out to people in my family that they don't, accept those things, or, or my friends that were Christians that don't accept those things. And I can see the best that I can see out of their faith, and I can take that and I can separate the other things and stuff like that. And one of the things that I think I can just never have a problem with, almost even regardless of, where the content gets, that if somebody has some belief they think is really true and it's religious belief, we should protect their rights the same way that I would want mine protected, so such that I can have that discussion with them and show them, because I don't know how I'm going to convince other people, to abandon certain religious views that make them, in my opinion, worse people in some cases. I don't know how I'm going to have that conversation if we don't have that kind of religious freedom amongst all of us, where we recognize that we are in a same fight together, for us to be able to have these conversations, for you to be able to gather when you want to gather with the people that you want to gather. I would never want you to not have that. But what I would want you to have in addition to that is the critical thinking skills for you to be able to not be duped by the people around you and buy into NFT and crypto scams and all that crap. So, there's kind of, it's kind of layered here, but I 100%, I'm on your side on that front of making sure you have your religious freedoms.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank you, GB. I really appreciate you calling in there, bud.
Yeah, and hopefully looking forward to calling another time, and I hope the rest of your show goes great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That was a good conversation. Thank you.
Yep. All right. See you later there, GB.
All right.
All right. We definitely did hit our goal, so I've actually got to go and get Brocephus out of the other room. So,
all right.
Yes, I will. I will
you
be
just
right.
leaving me now, just by myself.
Yes, I am.
Oh, it's cool. I got the coolest audience in the fucking world, so I will hang out with them while you do that. I will while we get Brocephus, I will remind everybody that you can support us, which you have already reached the goal by sending super chats, and we just reached that goal. So thank you, everybody. You can also check out all of the ACA shows on the tiny.cc link /AEN podcast, where you can do what I wish I kind of had way back in the day with most of the content that I'd have to go to YouTube on. You can just save your battery and put it on your phone. The ACA also wants you to know that you are in what's going on in our community. So head to www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization and what is going on within it. All right. And we will get to calls in a second, but we have one new person that's joining us. So let's see how this goes. I don't really know this guy.
What's up there, heathens?
I don't like the shades.
Hope y'all go to hell.
All
right. Good seeing you there, Jmike. I see you all the time over there on the YouTubes and the TikTokies and everything. All right, yeah. I'm supposed to take a call. Is that right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you want to be set up with there, Mr. Bro?
I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. We can talk to whoever, I guess.
We have all right, bro. Would you prefer a theist or a question mark?
Let's go with a question mark. I love the unknown.
All right, we're gonna go to Yoshi, and pronouns he him in Texas. Is an atheist or theist depending on the definition of God, and would like to know what we think about that. Is that a reasonable position? And I don't know, bro. Do you want to start out with this?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. What's up there, Yoshi? How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, bro? Cephas?
I'm doing pretty good there, man. So what you want to talk about today?
Well, Jmike already hit it. I'll read it again. I'm an atheist or a theist, depending on the definition of God. I would like to know what you guys think about that. Is that stupid?
Since I am on the ACA here, maybe I should temper my responses a little bit from what I do over on GE's channel. But yes, I do believe that is a bit dumb. But maybe it's just because I don't understand what you're talking about here. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what you mean by you are sometimes an atheist and sometimes you're not?
Well, I didn't necessarily say that. I would say I'm neither really. But, I did. That's literally what I just said.
I'm glad you realized that. That's some self-reflection shit right there.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Yoshi. I have multiple ways to make this totally coherent. So I will be on your side on this.
Okay, thanks, Jmike. So theism is the belief in a God. Like theology is the study of God. Yeah, I mean, whether I lack belief or believe would depend on whatever the person is defining God as, right? I don't think that's stupid.
I mean, I feel like maybe that's just having a nuanced position on God and not necessarily like I wouldn't say that I'm an atheist if I only disbelieved in, Krishna, or if I only disbelieved in, any of the other weird religions out there. Like, I wouldn't say somebody is an atheist just because they didn't believe in them. I mean, that you can easily believe in any kind of supernatural deity. Me personally, as you can tell, I am a Christian, so I believe in the Christian God. And just because I disbelieve in like the Muslim God, that doesn't mean that I'm an atheist or anything.
Right. So let's pretend now that I'm defining God as consciousness or, awareness itself. And that's my definition.
Oh, so you're going the Jordan Peterson route.
With that.
You want to go Jordan Peterson with it?
Dropped the ball, man. He dropped the ball big time. I got words for Mr. Peterson. We'll get to him later.
Oh, trust me, Peterson has a lot of words. None of them make sense when they're put together, but he's got a lot of words for you too.
He's got a whole salad bar of them, man.
I totally agree, but what you just said sounds a lot like Jordan Peterson. Consciousness is God, and because we can formulate in our minds the perfect being, therefore that perfect being has to exist, and it is consciousness or some kind of shit like that. I don't see how that makes it any better.
Okay, listen, this is all good and fun and everything, but I would like to take this call at least somewhat seriously. I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, I can give you. I know. I was gonna give you a response that's on that, because if you genuinely are wondering about this kind of thing, the thing that you just said is just a subject change, right? If somebody just comes up to you, because I deal with this on TikTok like all the fucking time, and it's like, well, look, I think God is this thing, and it's like just consciousness, or it's everything, or something like that. Under that view, it's like there's not going to be a substantive disagreement, because like if you just say like God is everything, or it's this thing like consciousness, well, I agree that consciousness exists, right? I agree that there is the set of everything. So if someone just uses a stupid grunt sound God to change the subject onto like being everything or consciousness, that's not what I'm denying as an atheist, right? That's just like changing the subject. It's like if I was like, hey, I'll meet you at the bank, and they were the whole time that they weren't talking about a financial institution, they were talking about a riverbank, right? We're just not talking about the same thing. They're changing the subject. So you're perfectly fine to say, look, I'm atheist with respect to this God, right? I think that the proposition this God exists is false. And you could say that you're atheist with respect to that. I don't see like any problem with that. But my own view personally is just that if you're talking about God, generally what you're talking about is some mind that exists alone before creating an external world, or gods that exist, with each other, and then they create the external world. And that's the thing that I deny as an atheist, which is why I don't say I'm an agnostic atheist. I just say I'm an atheist in the sense that I'm on the one side of the aisle where I said gods don't exist. So. But you could use it in that way. I see no problem with that. I don't see what the issue would be. Like I'm agnostic, atheist in regards to like all these different gods, like all these other gods that I don't know about. But I'm an atheist in reference to this God or something. I don't see why that'd be an issue.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to prove the existence of God or anything like that. I'm just trying to say that it's possible that when someone's referring to or using the word God, they may use it that way, and in a more Eastern sense. Traditionally, I think Buddhists and Hindus believe that God is really like life itself. It's the experience that we're all having, or you could say consciousness, awareness, or it's the whole freaking thing. So you could see all that as a mind in a sort of way, and I wouldn't say that it had ever been a creator, because like that would lead you into an infinite regression. And so I would say that this with making as few assumptions as possible, you end up with this has always been here. I can safely assume that this has always existed. Like if I go through the scientific route and take it on,
if that's your view, if you hold a view that if you hold a view that everything's already been here, like it's just an infinite regression, where in that timeline does a God pop in, right? It just seems like that's a view where you could just say, I'm an atheist across the board. There are no gods, right?
Okay.
If I'm hearing you right.
I think you're missing it. Okay, let me explain. So if God is this existence already and it's always existed, which I that's making as few assumptions as possible for me, for myself. Like if I'm not going to take it on academic authority, because I'm too dumb to even maybe I'm not, maybe I'm just lazy, but I don't have time or whatever. That's an excuse.
There's no academic authority on God. People for 2,000 years in philosophy can't get any better than they've gotten. So
you keep changing the definition of God. I've already defined God as existence itself, and that's what we're studying.
Okay, but I'm just gonna let you know. I'm just gonna let you know, Yoshi. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in this call if that's what you're gonna do. I'm not interested in what I mean by God is existence itself, because like that's just really stupid. Like I'm sorry, it is. Like I already agree. I already agree that existence. All right, oh my gosh. All right,
I'll drop.
So, yeah, I'm just gonna mute you on this, because this is I don't put up with this kind of crap because it's a waste of time. It's not a serious thing when someone's like, oh, God has this baggage and I'm just gonna change it to like it being existence. I don't deny that things exist. I'm one of the fucking things that exist. How am I gonna deny that? It'd be like a performative contradiction. It'd be like me coming up to you and being like, I'm dead, right? I have to be alive to say that. So it doesn't make any sense for me to combat a view where someone goes, hey, I used this stupid grunt sound with my face. God, what do you mean by that stupid sound you just made with your stupid face? Oh, it means everything. Okay, now I'm just gonna walk. I'm not calling this person stupid. I'm just saying, like, it's just really like you got to think about this, man. If you're just gonna say there's already a thing, I already know what it is, and you're gonna call it God, why don't we just talk about what it's already labeled? It just makes no sense. It's just a waste of time. Right? So, like, what are we doing?
In my back.
Yes.
In my back.
You are now.
Okay. So
were you not listening?
Yeah, no.
Are you not listening?
I just wanted to make sure I was back because I got muted, sir.
Yeah, I did that. That was me.
It's all good. Okay, so I didn't call to argue. I called to just have a conversation. But if y'all want to get to somebody you can argue with, that's fine. Y'all can drop me. But
I'm just.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You were getting upset and saying, I think God's everything. I'm like, well, if that's the case, then I don't care about this conversation. It's just that's such a boring conversation to have.
Not get upset. No, I don't think it's boring, and that's subjective. And I'd find this call quite interesting. But if you don't,
it's not. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna put my foot down on it. It's like to me, it's like playing t-ball.
Hey, Mike. That's fine, man. Like, I know you enjoy what you do, and you like to get to the good.
Well, I don't have to tell people in my life what I'm gonna go sit on the chair, and they're like, oh, okay, you're gonna sit on that thing. I go, what I mean by a chair is a guitar. All right, I don't have to do that ever in my life. I like genuinely don't understand how people struggle with like with like concepts and terms that we use to relay those concepts. If someone just comes up and goes, I'm no longer talking about this concept anymore, all I'm talking about is this word, God, and then I define it as a different concept, the mystery goes away when you realize that you're invoking two different concepts and equivocating, right? The mystery just goes away. I'm not trying to be rude. I just genuinely don't understand why you're pushing back on this when it's so easy to understand.
Argument alone. Sorry for trying to talk over you. I've heard that argument.
No, you're okay. It's fine. It's fine.
500 times by Matt Dillahunty alone. I've listened to y'all's show for like 12 years. So I get it. And I'm not trying to even make a case for God. Literally, I said I'm neither atheist or theist, or you can call me both. I don't know what the heck I am. I don't like being labeled, and I just like talking to people and investigating different ways that we can all bridge ourselves together through language. Like, so if people are more flexible and can use different definitions of God, but if you get so angry just at the mention of the God word.
No, it's not. I get angry that somebody is talking about not the God thing. They're talking about something else, like everything or consciousness. Because I'm sitting there like, do I have to do this thing where I have to get somebody back on the railroad tracks of the concept that we're talking about, a being that's all powerful, that knows things, has intentional states, that creates an external world, that had the freedom to create or not create it. Like, that is a very specific concept. And I refuse to believe when I'm talking with people that people are like confused about this. And they're like, well, maybe it means chair or like consciousness or like cup. I for the life of me can't understand how people, like, why this goes this way. I just don't get it.
Well, I just made the case in Hinduism and Buddhism. They view it much differently. They view if they came here and spoke English, they might invoke the word God to talk.
They don't. They have concepts of specific beings with specific intentional states. So no, they agree with the same thing. They have polytheism, but they think that those things created things. So it's the same thing. It's not changing the subject at all.
No, I think.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add real quick that I feel like your definition of God that you presented here is just moving the goalpost. Like, I feel like you're moving the goalpost from a very concrete definition of God, like, you know, my Yahweh that exists in the Bible and is the one true and all powerful God. And you're just pushing him back, moving the goalpost back on God into a space where we can neither prove nor disprove it, which makes it a superfluous statement to even make and kind of a superfluous thing to even believe in the first place. Like, I just don't understand the benefit of defining God in a way that we can never prove or disprove whether or not you're correct.
It's just a semantic game.
Who cares, man? It's not a semantic game. I'm
sorry, you care enough to call in.
No, it's literally the definition of a semantic game.
Intentions are. No, you guys are like assuming my intentions with the call, like that I'm trying to.
I'm not assuming your intentions at all. I'm just saying you're playing a really boring semantic game. I've said that from the outset. I've said that in the middle. And I've said that right now. It's a boring semantic game. I'm not interested in this call anymore, so I'm moving on. Dropping the call. Not interested.
All right. Well, that was interesting.
I'm sorry for wasting everybody's time on that. Like, it was such a waste of time to talk. Like, I want to field genuine questions on that. Like, I really can't understand how when people use terms and stuff, you go, hey, well, what do you mean by that? And they go, oh, well, by God, I mean this thing that's not an intentional being. It's like an arcade cabinet or something like that. It's like, okay, well, I think arcade cabinets exist. I just don't call them God. So bye. Like, that's the end of the conversation.
Okay, I just got word that I'm supposed to stay on for another call, so maybe we can take another one. Which one do you think there, Jmike?
We have a theist. Would you prefer that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hannah, pronouns she, her, from Mississippi. The ethical case of Judaism. Okay, sorry.
What's up there, Hannah? How you doing?
I'm doing well. So just to clarify, I am the caller who used to go under the name Jackie, but recently I've been pushing my gender, and I wanted to know if it's okay if you don't want to use she, her pronouns for me, that's fine. It's just
we'd love to. I mean, I am a little surprised. I think if I'm remembering this person specifically, but yeah, no, feel free. 100%.
Yeah, I named myself Hannah after Hannah Arendt, who's a big inspiration of mine, even though I disagree with her on some things. And in any event, I just wanted to call in to provide what I think is the moral argument for the Jewish religion. So
okay, all right, yeah. Sorry, I was taken aback a little bit. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So basically, what I would like to argue is that Judaism, and I would also argue Christianity, to the extent that's influenced by Judaism, provides a strong ethical foundation for a free society. So I don't know if either of you gentlemen are familiar with the philosopher Bernard Henry Levy, but he's a prominent continental philosopher from France who is influenced.
I hate continental philosophy, so I definitely don't know. I think continental philosophy is garbage. So.
Well, Hannah, just let me just add in here. It's definitely the foundation for an ethical society as long as you bend the knee to God, right? Like you definitely have to get down on your knees and pray every single day. You got to worship God you got to do exactly what God says, and then there you find freedom in being a slave to God. Is that not correct? That's how I understand my Bible.
I don't think that's true of the Jewish religion's view of the relationship between human beings and God.
I mean, I sorry to push back on this, but I just, I mean, the Bible is very specific about how much God definitely wants you to worship him. I mean, if I remember correctly, he once opened up a sarlacc pit in the desert and he had it swallowed up a whole bunch of Israelites that were kind of getting lippy with him. A majority of the time when God gets really pissed off at the Israelites, it's because he was allowing like too much freedom, or there was too much freedom allowed in the society and everything. And so like God got pretty pissed off at them for that. God got pretty pissed off for other cultures showing off their freedom, to worship other gods and their free choice and everything like that. He got pretty pissed off at them, and he punished them in multiple ways, including with genocide as well as sex trafficking their little girls. So God is very clear in the Old Testament that you have to follow him and do what he says, or otherwise he will fuck you up.
Could I just make my case? Could I have maybe 1 minute to make my case? And then if there's anything in what I'm saying that you think is problematic or mistaken, you could respond. And then instead of doing that, what you're trying to do.
Okay, fine. Have a minute. Explain it to us like we're 5.
Okay.
Put a minute on the clock.
The reason I mentioned Bernard Henry Levy is because he's influenced by the postmodern ideals of people like Jean-Francois Lyotard and others who analyzed skepticism to meta-narrative. And I think he's influenced by the Jewish theologian Emmanuel Levinas, because he would argue that even if we accept the postmodern skepticism to the legitimacy of an all-totalizing narrative, and we should encourage pluralistic societies that accommodate micro-narratives, the thing at the base of those micro-narratives should...
You're using way too many... Oh, go ahead. You're losing me so quick.
And I would argue that the ethical responsibility to pluralism and alterity, right, the meta-narrative that is the basis of the micro-narrative, is Judaism and specifically the Judeo-Christian tradition in the West, because of the fact that within both Judaism, with thinkers like Martin Buber and Emmanuel Levinas, as well as within Christianity, because of the idea that we have each individual is created in the transcendent image of the divine, that we have an ethical responsibility to protect the rights of the other. And so totalitarian regimes, which are predominantly Islamic or communistic or atheistic, I believe that's an example of what happens when you don't have a strong ethical responsibility to the other. And I think Judeo-Christian ethics is essentially the basis of that.
If I tried to repeat the gist of what you said, I would fail miserably. Could you put it in a way that I can actually understand the content? And I just switched over to the YouTube live, and nobody in the audience understands what you're saying either. So I'm not alone. I wanted to make sure if I was the only one.
Well,
so if you want to a big part of this is this is something that I struggle with myself, right? If you want to get people on board with what you're saying, you got to package it and this is something I don't have a great skill at doing. You got to have to package it in a way that everybody's gonna be able to understand, right? I am a hypocrite for saying that because I don't do that very well. But if you could try, I really want to be able to understand what you're saying. All I heard was that Judeo-Christian values, like thumbs up. It's basically what I got out of it.
Okay. Well, perhaps a better way to maybe I'm going to try and say it in a way that's perhaps more accessible. The meta narrative.
Also keep in mind that like I hate continental philosophy. So if you're going to use any language in continental philosophy, avoid it, because I think continental philosophy is garbage. Like it's just trash.
And I have no idea what continental philosophy is.
There's two schools of thought: analytic and continental. Analytic is like actually like getting at the heart of a lot of things, whereas continental is like very vague, very poetic, you don't understand what anybody's saying.
Does it have any connection to the continental breakfast that you get at the hotels?
Yeah, no, the continental breakfasts are awesome.
Anyway, okay. Anyways, Hannah, go on ahead and try to explain it to us like we're 2.5 years old.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is you could say the essential moral foundation or axiom that our society should be built upon is one that says that even though we can't know the absolute truth, and that each individual has their own micro-narrative that they live by, the micro-narrative should be accommodated in the fact that we still ultimately have to respect each other's rights. And this sort of, you could say, pro-human or pro-individual rights approach comes from the idea that we are created in the image of a transcendent ideal like God. Does that make sense?
Okay, I mean, if you want to deviate completely from what the Bible says and not follow anything that God directly says in the Hebrew Bible as well as the New Testament, then thumbs up, sure, go right on ahead. But I mean, that's not in the Bible, and that's not anything that the Bible teaches. That's not the moral argument for God. That's not, like, I don't know where you're getting that. That seems like if the continental thing is like some kind of weird vagary kind of bullshittery, then it sounds like it's right up Continental's alley.
It's very Jordan, like it's like Jordan Peterson, like I think like tries to be a continental philosopher but fails miserably.
Yeah, and so Hannah, I'm just kind of curious if you could answer for me why, if that's the case for God in the Bible, my God specifically, why is it that in the Bible God is very specific about the fact that you have to do exactly what he says, otherwise he will fuck you up royally, to the point where like he specifically manufactures situations so that he can go on a complete murder spree of young children in Egypt. There's that one. There's also the fact that God specifically commands the Israelites to kill all of the people and children of the Midianites just because they race mixed, and because they race mixed, God has the Israelites kill all of them but take all of the small girls for sexual slavery. Can you explain your idea in contrast with the words that are literally in the fucking Bible?
I would just say the micro-narratives presented in the biblical corpus should be seen in context of the broader meta-narrative. And so even if in the micro-narrative of an individual biblical...
Look, stop right there. I want to test something. I'm going to test this. Say that sentence again. The micro narrative, and then what? Stop at the meta narrative, and we're going to look under the hood and see if this sentence makes any sense, because I'm not convinced that it will. So, what was the sentence?
I was basically saying the micro narrative should be interpreted in light of the meta narrative.
What does that mean?
Basically, the Lyotarian micro-narratives should be seen within the broader cross-cultural referencing of different stories. So you might have an individual narrative.
Why do I care about? Wait, hold on. Why do I care about introducing stories? I'm not getting this.
Because
I don't understand what the micro narrative, macro narrative, like what is this? What is this supposed to do to get me to believe that there's some like ethical foundation that's true? Right, I'm lost there.
Because we're not talking about whether the ethical foundation is true. I'm responding to what Glenn, to what Godless Engineer was saying about the stories in the Bible. What I'm saying is the micro narratives within each individual biblical story are embedded within a broader meta narrative, and the meta narrative is the biblical corpus as a whole.
Yeah, so you're saying there's an overarching story and there's like little stories in it, but then okay, what's the significance of that? Yeah. I don't understand. Because
I'm saying the overarching story within the Bible involves the broader the ethical case that like each individual has transcendent value, even if there's the normative ethical rule.
There isn't. Okay, there's not going to be an intrinsic theory of value in this view if, when it turns out on your view, all of these things, like I said in the problem of evil, end up serving God's purpose. Like, so if the things that you're saying, if I'm detecting you, these things in these micro narrative kind of get subsumed up into the meta narrative, and it all like kind of, it gets kosher at that point. Well, that just to me is going to point out that you don't seem to have like a value theory at all, because you don't have like an opposing good or opposing evil, because there's not going to be like evil in the view. If all of this stuff goes towards the meta narrative, all of that stuff in between is just going to serve its role to get to the meta narrative. It's going to make it something that ought to be done as opposed to ought not be done. So it's like, if I'm hearing you right, I'm not going to struggle for you to even get to any value theory or of anything there when the meta narrative subsumes all of that crap. Like if John brings up like the God having purpose for virgin women and stuff, that you're going to inevitably respond with this meta narrative stuff, right?
What I'm saying is you can't look at each individual story out of context.
Yes, I tracked that part. I got that part. I'm saying when we get to the meta narrative, there's going to be some type of like resolution or some type of justification or some other bigger picture to see it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but then there's no theory of value here. You have no opposing good or evil. There's no evil in your view. All those things end up serving for the greater good. There couldn't be the evil in that view. There couldn't be an opposing value theory because you don't have a good versus bad analysis. So I don't know what you're even saying anymore if this whole thing's predicated on some type of value theory or grounding of some Judaic some ethics of Judaism or something, which is what I have on the call screen. So I don't even understand how you could even make that analysis, given that you don't have a value theory at all, given that everything subsumes into that meta narrative. That makes no sense.
What I'm saying is human decisions can be bad or good, but God's decisions are always good because God is all good and humans are not all good.
Okay, hold on. Can I step in here? So what you're telling me right now is that God ordering the Israelites to sexually traffic young girls in Numbers 31 is a good thing.
What I'm saying is you have to look at the verse in the context of the historical events that the Israelite nation was embedded in, and that the modern day Jewish religion and through texts like the Midrashim and the Talmud interpret that, because it's a lot more nuanced than how.
Oh my God! It only takes saying no. That is not a good thing. You can't just say that no sex trafficking small girls is bad.
He's going to do the thing where it goes into subsumes into this meta narrative, which is the point I'm trying to draw, that there isn't actually like an all things considered bad. So there's no value theory to compare of good versus the bad, right? Because there doesn't exist the bad, because it subsumes into this meta narrative of the good. Do you see my point?
What I'm saying is the only bad can come from human decisions, not from God's decisions.
Let's take a meta narrative. Let's take a micro narrative. The Holocaust, under your fucking view, that subsumes into a meta narrative where now it's something that ought to be done, right? Am I mistracking? Am I misfiring?
No, because the National Socialists.
No, I'm not misfiring.
The National Socialists didn't have any ethical justification to do what they did. They did it for no good reason. They did very evil actions for no reason.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about under your view. You're presumably talking about a meta narrative that exists within your view that gets funneled up to that makes things all okay and good. I'm not talking about this individual person's meta narrative.
I'm talking about
of the Bible.
I'm talking about the meta narrative of the biblical corpus. Yes.
Yes. So how are you struggling to see my point?
Can I summarize my point? Because I think we're talking past each other. Because I don't think you're understanding my point. I don't know if you understand what I mean when I say we need to interpret the stories in the context of the meta narrative. Like,
I don't understand what a fucking. I don't understand what a fucking meta narrative is. I don't understand what this whole mini narrative thing is, matters. I guess I just don't understand what context makes sexually trafficking young girls okay. In what world, in what possible context, in what possible understanding is God specifically saying traffic young girls? And then later on in the passage, a couple paragraphs later, he specifically points out how you should dole out these young girls to the Israelite population. So in what context, please illuminate, educate my dumb redneck hick ass. What context is it okay for an all-powerful deity to tell his chosen people to traffic young girls?
So wait, what young girls were being trafficked? Because I'm not actually familiar with the specific verse you're talking about.
Oh my God, Numbers 31, 17 to 18.
You're making this whole you do this whole meta fucking justification analysis, and you don't even know the quote unquote micro stuff in there. Of course, this fucking works out for you to just absolve any of these little micro narratives into this thing you already have constructed as the meta narrative that everything's okay. When John presents this to you in Numbers, it's not like it's going to change anything. You're just going to go, well, we can look at this from the perspective of the meta narrative. This is the micro narrative. We got to look at it in this perspective. You have created a system that prevents you from looking at something and going, that was fucking horrible. It shouldn't have happened. You're going, well, maybe if I think about this in this meta narrative context bullshit, am I the only one who feels like I'm going crazy here?
No, what I'm saying,
I am too.
If you're saying that the biblical corpus, specifically, I would say the Jewish corpus, but I would say to the extent that Christianity is influenced by Jewish ethical teachings, even Christianity, if you're saying that it doesn't have respect for the dignity of the individual because there are individual stories in the Bible that seem to not portray the dignity of the individual, you have to understand the broader spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law with regard
to the whole fucking Hannah, the whole point I've been drawing out the whole entire time was that we're gonna look at this little tiny corner of the room, and what you're inevitably gonna fucking do is blow it up into the broader meta narrative. That has been my point the entire fucking time. I've tracked you the entire time, and I've made an additional consequence that's entailed from that view, which is that you don't have a value theory of good or bad to compare against, because it's not true of the following, that there exist things that should not occur, all things considered. Why do I say that, Mike? The reason I say that is because you've constructed this whole meta narrative thing where when we point out the things in Numbers, when we point out these other things, they will get subsumed and funneled into that meta narrative, that broader understanding. I have not mistracked you at all. Now I just feel disrespected that you told me that you don't think I'm tracking you, when clearly I am tracking you. You're not tracking me.
Well, yeah, perhaps I'm just not fully understanding you, but what I think I'm just trying to make the argument that, yes, there are evil actions, but I'm saying the evil actions are a result of human free will and not of God's volition. If it's talking about the specific incident Numbers, the reason I can't answer you with regards to that is because I don't remember that specific verse of the Torah. I may have read it before, but it just doesn't come to mind. So could you elaborate what the context of God permitting the Israelites to do that was? Because that might...
Okay, I can give you the context. I can definitely give you... Okay, so basically what happened was that the Israelites were caught race mixing with the Midianites, and God don't like race mixing, okay? Think about prior to the 1950s in the South here. Nobody wants to see a mixed race couple, okay? That's the exact same thing that God was going through in this whole Midianite Israelite thing. So in any case, God gets really pissed off at the Israelites, gives them some kind of dick cancer or something like that, and then causes a bunch of them to die. And then later on, God is really pissed off with the Midianites and orders the Israelites to go into their camp and kill everybody. Well, they didn't kill everybody. They left alive the women and the children and everything like that. And that pissed God off something awful, okay? Just completely awful. He was totally pissed. And so Moses said, hey, go back in there and kill all them children. But, you can keep all the virgin girls for yourselves. And so then the Israelites went in and took their swords, plunged it deep into the chests of small babies and children and boys and women that were completely innocent and all of this kind of shit. And they went through, did all that, and then stole all the young little girls so that they could be married off to the Israelite men. It was evenly distributed between them, and they even sacrificed as a burnt offering to God 1 out of every 500 of these virgin girls, because you got to pay it up to the mafia boss in the sky. You just got to give it up to him and burn a little virgin on occasion. So my question still remains that has still yet to be answered: in what context can you actually make a micro narrative or meta narrative in which this is okay?
So I would just say,
Great question.
from the best I can remember about the rabbinic explanation for why that's considered justified is that it's considered, my understanding is the Talmud and the Midrashim interpret that as having been the Midianites committed public sexual immorality with the Israelites, and because they committed
No, they didn't.
sexual immorality.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but no, they didn't. They didn't. The only immorality they did was the Israelites were caught having sex with the Midianites. Like, they were not just having sex, but like getting married and having relationships with each other.
In public. In public?
No, there was no mention of in public. In fact, in the story specifically, an Israelite takes a Midianite woman back to the tent and in private lays pipe.
Okay, I thought that's what the rabbinic text like the Midrashim interpreted it, but this has been a while since I've heard this story explained to me.
Oh, okay. Well, no, they were fucking in a tent, and an Israelite came in and impaled the two people, and then God got really pissed off. So, like, it was purely just the fact that they were race mixing. Like, there was no public sex or anything like that. But even so, let's just assume, like, for shits and giggles here, let's just assume that they were fucking out in public, just right there in the square on the fountain or whatever. They were fucking each other. Let's just say they were doing that. Does that mean that you should go in, kill all of them, and steal their young children to force into sexual slavery?
Well, the argument would be that the nation of Midian was committing so much sexual immorality that they deserve to suffer or be punished as a nation for what they did, because they're committing public sexual acts and otherwise worshiping idolatry and luring the Israelites to idolatry and public nudity and other things, or corrupting the culture. That's the best of my understanding of why they, as a nation, were being punished.
And you think that's okay? You think that's a good thing?
Or inevitably reaching out to the thing that I told them would be the case.
If a nation of people is intentionally like doing things like public sexual immorality, worshiping idolatry, and it's things like theft and murder, which I understand the Midianites have been accused of theft and murder as a culture. If they're committing these like heinous acts, then yeah, you should hold people accountable.
Oh, and so you think that it's good to hold people accountable by killing their small children and sexually enslaving their daughters? That's holding them accountable for whatever kind of shitty action, like some of the people in the Midianite group did. Like that, you think that's perfectly like let's just put this in
right, John,
I know. Let's just take it like if there's another town over, right? If another town over from me does some shitty shit to my town, can I then go in, wipe them all out, and steal their young children and force them into sexual slavery for myself? Like, is that going to be a good thing for me to do?
I mean, if an entire nation of people or the most citizens of a nation are committing like heinous acts, then like, yeah, some people who you might think are innocent might be punished. Yeah.
So you can see a conceivable context and scenario where genocide is perfectly fine.
I don't believe I would classify what happens in the Midianites as genocide. Whatever word you use, I think you should understand the context of the immorality they were responsible for.
I guess this is going to be the difference between the both of us, and maybe we can have this be the last bit here. I don't think there's any context where genocide is okay.
Well, you have to look at it from the meta narrative, and then it'll be okay once you look at it from the meta narrative.
I understand what you're saying there, Jmike, but I have no fucking clue what the meta narrative is.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah, I'm sorry. It's just like I 100% tracked. Like, I didn't get anything you're saying, and then I got what you're saying. And someone in the comments, Tommi, put out a really good point, and Tommi, just keep killing it, keep rocking it, because you said something brilliant, which is something I use a lot. It's like when people kind of come up to you and they're like, everything happens for a reason, right? How many times, like, I was in a previous kind of spiritual position in my life where I've heard this kind of everything happens for a reason. The universe is conscious and knows what you want, and it'll happen, right? All this stuff. Well, if everything happens for a reason, that means that there's like no event that shouldn't occur, right? It means that all events should occur, right? But now just fill in the blank with like the Holocaust. It ought to occur, right? Right. It has a purpose, has a reason, and you seem to ostensibly be saying something very similar, which is that like if you just funnel it into this kind of meta narrative, then it kind of absolves what the initial instrumental worries were about. But I don't see anything different about this and typical problems of evil I run in, where like if you're trying to express what I have on the call screen, which is this ethical like consideration for Judaism, I don't even know how you have a value. I'm making a further point that I don't even see how you have a value system when there aren't these competing values, because there isn't actually anything that's bad. Because when you look at it, a term that's used in philosophy, pro toto, right? If you're familiar with that term, that's not like you're really into like Africa by Toto. It's like, it means that you, sorry, it's a bad joke, horrible joke. It means that it's all things considered notion. And that won't be true of your view, that all things considered, there's evil or something bad, or that the meta narrative was a bad or the micro narrative was a bad thing, because everything has to be looked at from the meta narrative, which makes it something that ought to have been done. So I don't know if you're tracking that point with me, but I just don't even see how you could even argue for an ethical system or a value system given the propositions you've listed to me. It seems like I can just make a derivation to show that you have no theory of value.
But I would just say the thing is, I'm not saying every event should be packaged within the meta narrative. It's only the events within the biblical corpus. Not
that's what I'm saying, though.
General.
I'm looking at it from the biblical, exactly. I'm not taking a Muslim and saying that this is their view. I'm just taking propositions that you uttered to me, and I'm just pointing out there's an unnoticed consequence, it seems like, which is that you can't have a theory of value. You can't make these kind of ethical proclamations of what are good or bad, because bad doesn't exist in your view.
But I can't,
because all things considered, those things are.
I can when you're dealing with questions of human free will, and things like the Holocaust involve human free will, whereas the biblical corpus is God intervening, where human free will is not the same. And the Holocaust
okay, Hannah.
of humans using their free will to commit evil.
Right. I feel like we're getting into another kind of area here, and we do need to because Jmike needs to head out. So I think that this is probably a good place for us to sort of stop and maybe pick it up again some other time, either when either of us are on or somebody else is on. You can come on and talk about the whole free will aspect to all of that. I do have to say, though, I'll let you have the last word here, Hannah, here in just a second, but I do have to agree with my alter ego there, Brocephus, in that I don't see any kind of context or explanation or anything like that in which some of the biblical stories in the Old Testament can be seen as good. And I think that it's a pretty deplorable position to have, to argue that it is good given whatever kind of meta micro narrative explanation that you can actually come up with. So that's where I stand on that. And I think that that's going to be the fundamental difference between both of our views on the ethics of the Hebrew Bible. But I'll let you have the last word there, Hannah.
Ethical responsibility to alterity in the face of the death of the Judeo-Christian value system Western culture is built on, and how you can ground that ethical responsibility to alterity in something transcendent.
I'm not going to respond to anything so that we don't play this game of going back and forth over and over again forever. Proof for an infinite regression is just the debate scene. You know, that's maybe an argument for an infinite regression. It just never ends. But yeah, we'll move on. I unfortunately have had some. I had to recently get like an MRI and stuff, so I found not like anything majorly serious, but I have some back and problems, shoulder problems that I found out, and so I'm going to pass it to Kelley, and it'll relieve me of some potential pain from coming. So I just wanted to give a thanks to Kelley and to John and everybody that fills that in, keeps the show going for everybody else. I really appreciate that, and I wanted to at least say this to some people, because I saw we have a call coming in where someone's going through a lot, and I understand what that's like to go through, just have shit just completely come out of nowhere and just screw up your life in many ways. And so I want people to know that there's people out there for you that will talk to you, that will help you. I have an amazing friend named Aaron who's helped me a lot with a lot of different stuff and recently. And I just want people to know you're not hopeless. There's plenty of people that will reach out, love you, and help you. And so if you're going through a lot, just reach out to somebody, because it's not hopeless, I promise.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Jmike, for being here today and everything like that.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
I hope you get to feeling better and everything like that. And
I just got to do my stretches and get my TENS unit on my back, and I'll be good. So
okay. All right. Well, you go take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you later. And we'll see you later there, Hannah. All right. So we are going to be getting Kelley on here in a second, but maybe let's see. Would it be possible to maybe go over a super chat or two? I know that we got a couple of super chats while we're waiting on Kelley to get up here. We had Nero, a member for 1 year, that says, "Thank you both for everything you do and everyone at the ACA and affiliates. It's always lovely to see y'all working so hard to fight for rationality and humanity, given how turbulent things are." Thank you so much there, Nero. Appreciate your super chat and everything. And we'll be here, fighting the good fight and everything like that. Hey there, Kelley. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? I pulled a Johnny P there for a second. I forgot to unmute myself.
Good. It's good to see you on screen tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. This is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want to go ahead and jump into the next call?
Sure, that'd be on. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, next we've got Cade calling in from Texas. Oh no, crap, I hit the wrong button. I got big fat fingers. I don't know if Cade is still watching or listening, but please do call back in. That my fat finger accidentally hit the wrong button on that. That's totally my fault, Cade. I do want to hear from you, so please do call back in if you can.
I've done that, and I don't have fat fingers, so
yeah,
so it's not hard to do, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll take Blaine from California, and I will desperately try not to hit the wrong button on my iPad here. Okay, Blaine from California, how you doing?
How you both doing?
Good. So what's up? What you want to talk about today?
So, I am an atheist, and I'm kind of struggling with this conundrum where I'm a big fan of Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris. And Christopher Hitchens' point on pluralism is that he's fine with people that keep their religion as their toys that they play with in their bedroom, and whatever that does for them, good for them. But when I listen to Sam Harris, he talks about how the more moderate, more cherry-picking religious people make a lot of cover for the more fanatic and extremist religious groups out there in the world. And I was hoping just to get your guys' take on that. I just don't know where I should be directing it from this point.
Yeah. Kelley, what are your thoughts?
I was hoping you were going to go first.
I can.
What's that? Go ahead. You go first. Go ahead.
Okay. I'll go first. So, I mean, I do think that there are a number of people that use religion as kind of like a shield or camouflage for enabling, people to do bad things. And the way that I always see it is that it really depends on how they're implementing their religion and how they're using the religion. If they're using the religion in a very personal way, where it's very personal to them, as far as like them, using it in their life in order to guide them in a certain direction, and not necessarily using it in order to excuse bad behavior or in order to force any particular persuasion onto you. I generally don't care if somebody is religious or not, or if they need religion. There's been plenty of people that have told me that they need religion so that they don't go on like a murder spree or something like that. And I'm like, go ahead, keep your religion. I don't want you to, do that. But I really think that it comes down to like, how do they implement it? How do they use religion? Do they use religion in order to, impose judgment on other people? Do they use it to shield others, from their consequences of their actions? I would focus on how they implement their faith and then deal with it from there. I typically don't have a problem with religious people that keep their faith to themselves, basically. Like they have a very private view of their faith, and they don't allow their faith to like force people to follow what they believe when the only reason to believe whatever it is because of their faith. And so like when it's very personal like that, I don't care. It's just when it gets into what they do with that I have a problem with. And while I do, that doesn't diminish my position as an anti-theist, because I feel like religion in all its forms definitely is detrimental to humanity in general, and we would be much better off without it. But just because I feel that way about religion, because it doesn't represent reality accurately, while I do have that feeling about religion, I'm not seeking to take religion away from people. I hope that that humanity gets to a point where we don't need magical thinking in order to be emotionally and mentally healthy and stable people, stable society. I hope that we can get there one day, but I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's something that I can work towards.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I would like to add on to that, maybe that, you mentioned using a religion as a shield, and I think we just had that illustrated in the last call, where we had some bigotry that was being shielded behind their religion. So, we see that all the time, and I think that's wrong. But I think if we can get past the animosity with each other and try to keep that to a minimum, we can have a better conversation and try to meet each other and get a better understanding where each of us are coming from. And I think that can only benefit the both of us on both sides of the conversation. So, that's all I can add to what John said, because he pretty much covered everything. I think he was very eloquent on that one. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that from both of you. And I hope the rest of the calls go amazing for the show.
Yeah, thank you so much there, Blaine. And feel free to call back in anytime. If you still struggle with this and you want to hear different opinions other than my own, call in any other Sunday, and people will definitely be here to help you out. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you both. Have an awesome day.
All right, you do the same, Blaine.
You.
All righty, that's great. So we are coming up on the end of the show here. We're going to pick up our last call here in a second. We do have some stuff going on afterwards, but I'm ready to jump into the next call. What about you?
Sure. I'm always ready to jump into a call.
All right. I'm trying to work my fat fingers out here so I don't hit the wrong button again. We're going to talk to Cade. Yes, I hit the right one. Hi, Cade in Texas. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing all right. Just got to get my aim right. I got to get that stick drift, corrected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's up today, Cade?
Well, I lost my father about 4 months ago in a pretty tragic accident, and my stepmother and kids from my dad's marriage are very extremely Catholic, and a lot of my peers are religious. I mean, I'm from Texas, so you got kind of all that going on, and it's been really tough trying to cope because a lot of people have just been telling me just pray about it and God has the answers to everything, and I just don't really know what to do as far as like any advice to go from there.
Right. Go ahead, Kelley.
I was going to say, I lost my mother in September, so I kind of get an idea of where you're coming from. So, yeah, I kind of got tired of the same thing too. I even had she had a little stained glass turtle that was hanging in the window in her house. And after she had passed, me and my sisters, I have 4 sisters, we were all at her house with my younger brother, and talking about what we were going to do with all this stuff. And I just took the little stained glass turtle and said, this is all I want. I don't want anything else. I just want something to remember her by. And I brought it back and I put it in the front window of our store. And about a week later, the sun was setting and it just hit the turtle right. And it just glowed from the sunlight hitting it from the right angle. And I had all these people telling me that was God showing me that he was taking care of my mom, or my mom telling me she was good in heaven and stuff. And yeah, yeah, it does seem kind of bullshitty because none of that stuff is true, right? Or at least it's not true for you. But it does bring comfort to them. And even though it's hard to keep hearing it over and over and over, and another thing you're probably sick of hearing is it'll get better with time, right? And it's just right? Yeah, see, I knew I called it. I heard that little giggle. I knew I called that one because that was like every 30 minutes somebody was saying that to me, it seemed like. And the only thing I can say is that it's true. Eventually people will stop saying this stuff to you. And in that respect, at least it does get better with time, is that that people will stop hitting you with these things. So I really feel for you, man. I wish I could do something to make you feel better. I really do. Cause like I say, I just lost my mom. So I get where you're coming from. So, I mean, if there was anything I could say, I would say it, trust me.
Yeah, Cade.
I really do.
Does your family, whoever's giving you, are talking about prayer with you, do they know that like you don't believe, or like are they doing this in spite of like them knowing that you don't believe?
Yeah, no. Only 2 of my friends. I've been atheist for about 4 years now, and it's one of those things where it'd be better just to keep it to myself than go tote it. And I've just been going along with it for, as long as they can remember. But it's just it's hard when you're trying to grieve and mourn, and then you have that constant like, hey, this is why. And it's like, yeah, but not really. So, yeah, nobody really knows that I'm atheist.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I would then echo what Kelley says about this, and that, they are just trying to deal with it the best that they can. And so like the best that they can do is when they're feeling helpless and everything is to pray to God. And so I feel like they're just trying to, tell you what works best for them in hopes that it'll help you with the grieving process. So, I guess, saying thanks and not, as long as you don't want to like reveal that, you don't believe, I would probably just, acknowledge, their advice and everything like that. And then, thank them for the kind thoughts is kind of how I would do it. But there are several, and I don't know if you know, but there are several organizations out there that help with with this kind of thing, specifically Grief Beyond Belief. That's a good organization to look into. Another one would be Recovering from Religion Foundation. That's another good foundation out there to help. They have a lot of like counselors and stuff. So it's, you can find whatever kind of help to help you grieve and to help you work through that that you need. I know I've used these services that these organizations provide for my own mental health, and so I can definitely speak to their efficacy, I guess. And so I would suggest looking up those organizations and seeing what help you can get from there as far as helping to grieve in a good, healthy way. And I also want to say that I'm so sorry for your loss. I hate that you lost your father that way. And I wish there was something that I could do to help other than, the words that Kelley and I are giving you right now.
Thank you very much. I very appreciate it. I've heard of the Recovering from Religion people. They seem very fantastic. What was the other one you said? Grief
Beyond Belief.
And another one, too, if you're looking for a therapist or a counselor to talk to, would be the Secular Therapy Project. And Recovering from Religion is wonderful. There's just so many great people over there. When I first started doing atheist activism like 5 years ago, that's actually where I started out at. I was working as an online counselor over there. So there's a lot of great people there. I thoroughly recommend RFR.
Okay.
All right. Were there any other questions that you had for us?
That was pretty much it, man. It's one of those weird feelings, you feel like you're lost, you don't know who to turn to. So I've been a pretty big listener for a couple of years, and I was like, well, been nervous to call in, but you guys always seem to have the answers to most things. So.
Well, I'm glad you did call in. I really am. And I want to encourage you to call back, check in with us, and let us know how you're doing, and make that how you're progressing.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear about any updates.
Well, it's my last year of engineering school, so just trying to get that finished out.
Hey, and engineering. The last year of engineering school can be hectic, man. So I mean, good luck with that. I'm glad that I don't have to go through that again. All right, Cade. I hope you have a great night, and I guess we'll talk to you later. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
problem.
Cade.
Bye. All right. Well, that's going to be it for the calls tonight. As far as the outros, announcements and stuff, we've just want to remind everybody about the prompt for this week, and that is, if God is so smart, why hasn't it blank? Get your answer.
Why are there still monkeys?
Yeah, why are there still monkeys if God's so smart? Get your answer in the comments, and it might be read at the beginning of next week's episode. And we also want to thank our backup host, Kelley, for joining in tonight and, coming in on those last couple of calls right there. We also definitely want to thank all of the crew that is helping to make the ACA or the Atheist Experience work. We appreciate everybody that is tirelessly working in the comment moderation and doing the call screening and all the production on the back end. We really appreciate all of y'all. And all right, I think that's it for everything today. I hope that everybody will tune in.
Join us in Discord.
Yeah, join us. Discord. I'm going to be in the Discord for just a little bit after today, and then I'm going to get to the Super Bowl. Go sports team! I hope we make a basket. But we're going to do that, and I guess we will see all of you heathens next Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Central. Bye, y'all.
Bullshit everyone around you buys. You think it's any Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.